Woohoo!
I don't know if it look.
Money, bitch.
Hello guys and welcome back to episode 3 of this series 2, What They Don't Teach You. In this series we try and go through a few things which we don't think they taught you in school, which we think you should know about personal finance, money and just general things. Today's episode is about credit cards. Any thoughts on credit cards, John?
Are you going to intro me or do I just come in?
Oh yeah, sorry, Ollie's back again everyone. Way, Ollie's back.
Yay! Matt's, we're not doing this. We've done it 3 times, not doing it again. Yes, hi guys, I'm back. Yes, it's me. Woo. Bloody hell.
Yes. You're going to be here for the next, 5, 8 or so, however it is.
Well, I mean, we've prepped about 8, so yeah. I hope so. I hope I keep my employment that has not employed me.
Sack you.
Yeah. Credit cards, they're great. I like them a lot. Well, actually, up until about 5 months ago, I used to think they were devilish things. I just thought they were there to just rip you off. But they're actually a little bit handy. They're quite good.
Yeah, I think I was similar to you, except I think I got my first credit card halfway through first year, maybe? I think.
Did you? What, first year uni?
Yeah, I had a HSBC credit card that I got instead of an overdraft. But it was useless because it didn't give me any rewards at all. So, I mean, it was good for credit building, but no rewards at all. And yeah, I think it was a few months before you got yours, I got the Amex, and then you got the Amex.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's this saying in my family of whenever I bring financial advice and or new financial ventures that I'm going down to my family, they're like, is this a Matt thing? So the credit card thing was a Matt thing because Matt was like, mate, you should get a credit card, they're great, look at all these things that I'm doing. And I was like, yeah, but I'm going to lose my money. And then you're like, no. So,
well, hopefully at the end of this video we'll be able to tell everyone that they're not evil and why they're not evil. So I think it's probably prominent to start off what actually is a credit card and how is it different to a debit card. So for years, I mean, the same as me and you, we all used to use a debit card or just cash. But the difference with a credit card is when you pay on a credit card, it's actually a form of a loan, isn't it? So you're loaning the money from Amex or whoever you get a credit card with, and then you have to pay that back at the end of the month or whenever you want. But this is different on a debit card. When you go pay on a debit card, it comes straight out of your account. But a credit card is like a delayed coming out of your account, essentially. Yeah.
I mean, you could almost see it as a debit card is spending money. So if you get paid at the end of month 1. You've obviously gone through the entirety of month 1 not having any money, technically. I mean, it doesn't really work because... Anyway, so if you start month 1, you go through the entirety of month 1, then you get paid, and then for month 2, you're living off month 1's money. But with a credit card, that's with a debit card, so that's how debit cards work. But with a credit card, you're living through month 1, and you're spending in month 1, and then at the end, you get paid, and you're basically paying yourself back for all the living you've had for month 2, and you've also then refreshed your limit on your credit card so that in month 2 you can then live through month 2 knowing that you will then pay for that month at the end of the month rather than at the beginning,
which is one of the reasons why credit card can be bad for certain people, because I personally found in the first few weeks of using it properly for like most of my expenses, it was like, it kind of feels like free money because you sort of partially forget about it. And then when you have to pay it back and you've spent a little bit more than in your current account, you're like, oops, this is not good. But yeah, one thing I didn't... Go on. Sorry.
You and I budget quite well. And, we have weekly amounts that we're allowed to spend. And then it's like, you get to Thursday, in your week, and you're like, whoa, I've got like 80% of my limit still available. And then you have to go back and go, oh no, I spent this much on the Amex. Oh, I spent this much on the Amex. Oh, I spent this much on the Amex. And then... because we've got like Starling, we can just tuck that money away and it's quite easy to budget. But if you don't have that feature, suddenly, you've got £500 in your account and you've got to mentally split that up between, okay, I've already spent £300 of that on the Amex, on X and Y, and then I've only got £200, but it still looks like £500. So you need to have that self-discipline.
Cheeky hint to next week's episode, which is about budgeting.
I knew that.
One thing I actually found out... well, I knew it, but when I first got the Amex, is I didn't realize you could pay it back early, which I don't think some people know that. I think that some people know, you get your statement at the end of the month and you pay it off. which is obviously probably an easier way to do it in terms of tracking it.
Yeah.
But what I now do is at the end, I do it every week. So at the end of every week, I pay off my balance.
Yeah.
Which actually I think looks better to the credit provider because it looks like you're paying off more. But actually, my housemate Emmy had loads of questions because she didn't know anything particularly about credit cards. So that was one of her questions: was when can you pay it off? So in theory, Emmy, you can pay it off whenever you want.
So what is the process of if you go out? I don't know. Let's say it was an everyday purchase. Say you spent I don't know, 10 quid in Tesco. What is your process of spending on Amex to make sure you've budgeted for that money?
That I've budgeted for that £10 I spent on.
Yeah, so how do you make sure that by the time you get home, you don't suddenly ever have an extra £10 magically appeared in your account with all your budgeting?
Yeah. So, well, I know I have this much for a week. I think a uni is like 75 or 60, something like that, top of my head. And I know that then on the Sunday when I have to go pay the Amex off, it's going to be around that kind of number, or it should be less than that number.
So you sort of ballpark it, and you're like, oh, I know how much I've sort of spent.
Yeah, I mean, if it's if I made like a big purchase one week or something, then but typically it works out well. But yeah.
See, for me, okay, so because I feel like I sometimes over budget. So because I have the roundup feature whenever I do a purchase on my Starling, so like £6.30 becomes you've spent £7, but about 70p of that is in a little pot. If I go into Tesco now and I spend £8 on the Amex, £8.10 on the Amex, I will then, in my Starling app as I'm walking home, go into Starling and move £9 from my primary main account into a little Amex goal, Amex pot, and then when Amex, either when you want to, so when you're feeling like, oh, I need to pay my Amex off to get rid of that money, or when they ask for you to do it, you're not only have you got enough money to pay it, you then still manage to get your little savings pot because you may have 200 and something pound, but then only have to pay back 212, and then you've managed to save the extra £7. You just move it back into the pot. So it's a little bit more faff, but you can still get all the advantages of having the roundup spending. That I love so much.
I think people do it differently. Like everyone does it sort of differently, doesn't they?
Yeah.
I suppose that sort of ties into budgeting, and also depends on how much of a credit limit you have, which is when you get accepted, hopefully for a credit card, the amount you can spend. It's not every month; it's how much you can spend until you pay it back.
Yeah,
I think it might be rollover every month. So I think I have $3 and a bit grand on my Amex. So until I pay that,
I don't know how you got more than me. Don't know how that works.
I think it's based on factors like credit score and things like that. I don't know. It's a confusing.
It's fine. I don't care. It's fine. Don't care.
But yeah, one of the best tips I ever found, and we were talking actually before we started this, was to try and keep how much you use of your credit limit to less than 50%, and if possible, lower than 30%. Ollie was saying he's potentially near the 50%.
Why do you have to expose me like that? It's just money hasn't moved around yet. It's okay. It's being sorted on Monday. Everything's
fine. If it's in your current account, it's fine. But do you know the reason for keeping it lower than 50%?
Well, I'm assuming it's because of keeping your credit limit. Oh, it's not credit limit. Credit score viable.
Yeah, it makes you look more viable to the credit provider, that you're not exploiting all the potential credit.
But how like in detail do they look? Obviously, they've got millions of customers. Surely they don't look at each individual one and go, it must be just a statistic.
Well, I mean, at the moment, it's probably all algorithms, isn't it? So
maybe
just on the side of caution, I would always say, I tend to stick to about 30% because I only put petrol and like food and stuff, and I don't put like other random purchases.
I'll put like, because we shop as a uni house together, so I'll put that on it, and it will be like big purchases that like, bit of music tech equipment or something like that, something big.
Yeah, and that is also another reason why credit card is good, because did you know you're more protected on a credit card than you are on a debit card? I
did know that. Yes.
Yeah. I didn't know that until I got one.
Everyone else know that? Put it in the comments.
No, yeah. So if you actually, because it's not actually your money, it's the credit card company's money. They'll like fight to get you back, and they'll normally give you the money back very quickly because you have more rights, as it were.
Yeah.
So, Mr. Trigg, what happens if you don't pay off your credit card? Because somebody might get a credit card and think, "Oh, free money! I've got £1,000 I can go spend." What's going to happen in a month's time if you don't spend? when it pay off.
Naughty. That's really bad. Because so we've talked about interest being positive and being a good thing in savings accounts, and you're trying to find the highest interest, but you'll read the small text of credit cards, and the interest rates on credit cards are much higher than that, and you're like, oh, what does that mean? Basically, if you had a limit of £100 and you spent that £100 and your credit interest rate was 22%, suddenly you don't owe back £100, you owe £122. So you've just got 22. No,
only if you don't pay it back in.
Yeah.
So that's the common misconception. People think you have to pay back the interest regardless, but if you pay it back early or on time, you don't have to pay the interest.
So to be fair, they're very good about saying when you have to pay it by, and you have, even if you have £300, they'll say there's a minimum payment of this by this date, and then it will then slowly go down, and it will, So they don't try and catch you out or anything. But if you just leave it and forget about it and just ignore it, you'll come back to your £100 that you owe, and suddenly the £100 has grown massively.
Yeah.
And it will grow much quicker than anything else that in a savings account.
I think that's a few things to look at when you're looking at a credit card. We'll get into the types of credit cards in a minute, but looking at what the interest percentage is, I think Amex is about 22%, but there are ones that are ridiculous, like 50 or something percent, and also to see if they've got annual charges. If you're just starting off with a credit card, there's no point paying for a credit card that's got £120 annual fee, because you're not going to get the benefit more than that. If you're like a millionaire businessman, it's probably worth it. But if you're just starting off getting a credit card, just be aware of the annual fees.
Okay, just looking it up, I think the BA one that you and I have is 22.2%, as is the Platinum. The Amex Gold is 56.6%.
56%. So that's like, so if you spend £100, you have to pay back £156.
Yeah.
Wowee.
No thanks.
No,
thank you.
No. Yeah. So towards the end, we'll get onto like how to properly use a credit card. Like, we've got some rules that we use when we use a credit card. But I think we need to talk about the different types of credit cards, because there's so many. With a debit card, there's only mainly like one or two. It's a debit card kind of thing. But with the credit card,
it's just a debit card.
Yeah, I think you get like cash accounts, or when you were like 16 or something, things like that.
Okay, yeah.
But with a credit card, there's very many different types of credit cards. So the different types of credit cards gives you different type of rewards. So this is when someone asks me, what type of credit card should I get? And I'm like, you have to know what you're using it for. Do you want cash back, which is an option? Do you want air miles, which you can use on flights, hotels? Ooh. Do you want Nectar points, which you can obviously use at Sainsbury's and things like that? So I think there's no point trying to get a credit card unless you know what you want it for. Like the one we have is for air miles. Because I think that's personally a bit more versatile, because the cashback one I think you have to pay for, and it doesn't give you, and it also has an annual fee, I think.
Well, that's just for Amex. I mean, there'll be different ones around, but
But I think people don't tend to realize there's lots more.
It also depends on, some different ones will be harder for you to get. So if you have less of a credit score or a worse credit score, you'll some of the sort of more prestigious credit cards will just be off limits for you at the moment.
Did you know there is some proper niche Amex ones, like the Black Card or something, or I don't know what it's called, but only if you have like over £1 million in the bank account can you get it.
Really?
Yeah, it's for like proper elite, so it's not advertised.
Life goals. My life goal is to get an Amex Black credit card.
I think it's Black. It might be a different name, but it's definitely something like that. But cool. You're saying about the poor credit score. There are actually some credit cards called credit building credit cards, which actually help with that. So they're specifically for people who have worse credit score, and how they work is they're very similar. They don't give you many rewards, but the interest rate is really high on them. So you should only use them if you're actually serious about paying the money back. But what the high level of interest does is it shows to the bank that even with this high level of risk, you're going to pay it back. Yeah. And that will boost your credit score. So that's credit builder's credit score. And the other one which I found, which I would steer clear of unless it's a last resort, is a balance transfer, which is when, let's say you've got credit card debt with Amex, and then you get a balance transfer card with like Capital One or Aqua. You can move your debt from that to that, from either provider, and pay less interest because you're not accruing it on there.
Yeah.
Personally, I think that's a terrible idea because you're not really fixing the problem of debt, are you? You're just...
Well, yeah, but I mean, no. But if you are at a stage of your life where you can't pay it back, it's much better to be moving it somewhere that is costing you less.
Yeah, I think that's like I said. I think for me it would be a last resort doing that type thing.
It's a good idea. It's a good idea for the bank, really, because you know that all you have to do is provide them with a space to put their debt and entice them in with we're going to pay you less interest, and they're going to leave it there, and you know that you're going to make money out of that.
Yeah.
You know, you are signing on to someone who is going to be paying you interest, because otherwise, what's the point of using a balance transfer?
Clever from them, isn't it?
Yeah, it's very good. Clever.
So there's a few other types, but I think the main ones are the reward ones or the credit building ones. I think if you're getting started with it. So, Mr. Trigg, why should people get a credit card?
Well, let's go with Ollie. This is why you should get a credit card from Matt. What was the first thing you said? I can't remember. Basically, number one thing is especially at our age, we don't really need it. You know, currently we don't have big life expenditures. I mean,
mortgage,
but you and I personally don't have big life expenditures. So for us, they're used as credit builders. I didn't actually know credit card existed, so I might know those up. They're good. So they're using to sort of prepare yourself for when you do need to buy a mortgage. Your credit score is going to be more viable than someone who hasn't done it and hasn't really looked into it and is maybe gone into the student overdraft a lot, or sort of everything that has a detrimental effect to when you go to buy a house and they go, you've acted like this and you've acted like this. So we're trying to do anything we can to sort of to boost ourselves. They're also a good way of learning how they work. I think the best way of learning, is on the job, as in actually having one. You can read up about them all you want, but as soon as you actually have that responsibility, suddenly you're like, oh my gosh, how do I use this thing? It
definitely teaches you to be very responsible and to track your money, because I've known people that have overdrafts which are similar to credit cards. It's a type of debt, and they'll be like, oh yeah, I checked at the end of the year, at the end of the semester, and I've got 1,500 quid in my overdraft. I'm like, what are you going to do with that now? Like, you haven't been tracking that, have you? So it definitely. And
I've got so many friends who will, my friends will get their student loan in, then pay the little bit of rent, and then instead of budget what they have left, they'll just live how they want to live. And then they get to the end of the year and they're like £1,000 in their overdraft, and then their student loan comes back in, and then it's up to like zero. And it's the start of term, and then you've got to live the rest of the term in your overdraft again. And there's none of that either. Going out to try and get a job. I mean, obviously it's quite hard at the moment, and I'm not saying that everyone's not trying, but people are just very happy to just live in that overdraft, and it would stress me out. I don't know how they do it.
Yeah. To be fair, I don't. For the first few months of getting a credit card, I didn't like being indebted to Amex. I always tried to pay it off as soon as I can. I was like, I don't want to like it. But now I've set a time, because I read the 4-Hour Workweek, very good book. It's all about batching things, like doing your emails on one time of the day and doing your finances on like a Sunday rather than every single day, because it saves time. Very interesting book on a side note.
Really?
Very interesting. So like Tim Ferriss, the guy who wrote it, he checks his emails like once a week for an hour, and that's it. And then he goes away on like holiday because he can. We won't go into it here.
I like that.
Very interesting book. Go read it.
We're doing a podcast on like books, aren't we?
Yeah. So
life goals.
Also
Stay tuned.
another reward is, like we were saying, the rewards they give you from the credit card. So for this example, let's say Ollie doesn't have a credit card and I do. Sorry, Ollie. Let's say you go and buy shopping for your house for 100 quid on your debit card. What's going to happen?
My money will go out the bank.
Exactly. So I'm going to buy. Go on.
But actually, in that sense, my money goes out my bank, and then I am owed money by everybody else. So I'm actually in debt to myself currently.
Yeah.
Well, others are in debt to me.
Okay, let's just simplify and say you spent £100 in Sainsbury's or whatever. Right?
Okay, yeah.
If I spent £100 on my credit card, but let's say I used a cashback card or an Air Miles card, for the same transaction, I'm going to get a benefit of either 100 Avios, which is not a lot, but it adds up, or 5% cashback of £5. So if you put, so this is what I'm saying, all the purchases you put on the credit card help you in a way that it wasn't there when you had a debit card. I think people are just too scared to get one because they're like, oh no, I have to pay interest. I'm like, no, you don't if you pay it back on time.
Yeah. Suddenly, it's always worst case scenario you hear about with these credit cards, and they're like, "Oh, I forgot about it, and this happened, and never do it again." You know, all the lead up to that point has actually been positive, but the one negative thing is the bit that everyone hears about.
Yeah,
I suddenly think nobody wants a credit card.
I think there's so many things that we could talk about how to use them correctly, but like I think the fundamental is pay it back on time, in full if you can. Never use more than 50% of your limit. And pay it off through a direct debit, so that way even if you forget, it automatically gets paid off. And also never take cash out on a credit card because they charge you a lot. I think it's like £5 or something per time you ever want to take it out. And I think if you're getting started, the best way to do is to put small regular purchases. Like I started with my monthly phone bill, then my petrol costs, and now I've upgraded it to like food and all the other Amazon purchases, which I'm very guilty of. But yeah, I think small regular purchases are the way forward on a credit card.
And we can sit here and just say, oh, it improves, credit score, and it gets you thinking and blah blah blah. But if there's people there that are like, okay, well, I want real world examples. Me and Matt haven't gone extravagantly far with spending on our credit cards, and we can now both. I mean, how many Avos have you got now?
I think I've got 25,000, which is about.
Yeah, I'm only at 6.5. But it's even 6.5 Avios. 6.5. Oh my gosh, 6,500 Avios is enough to take me for a one-way trip to like Spain.
Yeah, so I think I'd go further than you.
Yeah, basically you can go to Spain and back 5 times, and I can only go once. So we're gonna go together. You're just gonna leave me there. But that's on BA, and I'm just sat here. Like, I haven't earned that. That's just happened.
Like all the only reason I've got more than you is because I referred people like you.
You referred me.
But
this is why Matt gets me into all these things. It's not because he's like, oh, this is a really good investment strategy. I'm really going to get Ollie into it. It's, there's a referral code. I know who I'll send that to.
On a cheeky note, if anyone wants to get a credit card, hit me up. No, but most of the time it is for your benefit as well, Mr. Trigg.
Yeah, to be fair, So I got a reward for it as well, and then I referred my friend, so I can't really say anything.
Okay. So yeah, like we said, that's how to use them. How to not use them is to forget about them, not pay it off, and then you get charged a lot of interest, which will then screw with your credit score.
Yeah.
On the back of that, if anyone's thinking, right, they've now convinced me, these two lads on YouTube have now convinced me to get a credit card. How the hell do you go about actually getting one? Because I suppose that's another tricky way to go about. Any suggestions, Mr. Trigg, about how to start getting a credit card?
First of all, check that A, you have a credit score that exists, and B,
how can you do that, Mr. Trigg?
On a credit checker website, Matt.
The three main ones are Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian.
I think Amex do their own as well.
They do their own little one. I didn't realize the three main ones gives you different credit scores, like vaguely different, like because they check for different things.
Okay.
I didn't know that. So in theory, you can go check all three if you're already bored.
The thing that I always find weird about them is that you put in your name and your address, and then suddenly it'll ask you a question about your life 9 years ago, and you're like, how have you just got that information stored? How is that just there for you to access?
All of these cameras are recording our data.
Let's not get into it. But basically,
get your credit score.
Yeah. Then check what it is. Obviously, it should be quite high. If you've been sensible growing up, it should be high. The only reason it goes down is when you've done stuff to make it bad, or you haven't looked after your money properly. And then you you then have to find a car that you want and it will work for you. But you're hoping
that's between Avios, cashback, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And obviously, if you're trying to do it to build your credit, to try and build your credit score, they'll obviously accept you with a slightly lower score. But then you've got the interest thing, as we said, and then you just apply.
That's the point, actually. If you have the higher your credit limit, typically, the more money they're willing to lend you. This is what I was saying earlier. I don't know. So my credit score might be marginally higher than yours, and that's why I maybe got a higher limit. Of course,
my mate, who's in my house, he has never touched. Sort of, he's always had a bank account. And it's always been looked after by his mum, and his both parents, and he's just sort of lived and never sort of had an overdraft or whatever. and his credit score, his credit limit on his Amex was like £35,000 per month, something like that.
Okay, well maybe
crazy.
maybe it's completely random, but it doesn't particularly matter because if you're getting your first credit card, whether it's £1,000 or £35,000, you're not going to be spending a lot on it every month.
No.
I
mean,
yes.
it might be minted, so maybe.
Yeah. So check credit score, figure out what you want to use it for. Then on some credit providers like Amex did it, they do a eligibility checker. So they do a soft background check, so it's not a hard background check, so it won't stay in your record forever. And then I think mine was like 8.5 out of 10 likely to be accepted or something.
Oh, I don't know what mine was.
And then it's like, obviously, you're going to go for it. And then the next steps are clearly just to put all the information in truthfully and then start spending on it, but cautiously, and pay it back.
And everything's got an app these days, so there is an app to help you track. The Amex app's actually really good. And even if you don't pay on like Apple Pay or something like that, as soon as you spend on it, it will come up on your phone and be like...
It comes up on my watch, and sometimes my mum is on my Amazon account, and sometimes she uses the wrong card, and I'm like, I haven't spent money on Amazon, and I'm like, Mum, put it on the wrong account. Anyway, sorry for baiting my mum out, but here we are.
Yeah, so you can keep every future purchase that your mum or Emily makes for you. You can be like, excuse me, you spent it on my card. Yeah.
Sorry, but I think that's been quite a nice summary of credit cards.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
One
tip.
On. What would you give your one tip of using a credit card to the people listening?
Keep an eye on it. Don't just forget about it. Use it proactively, and use it for a reason.
Sums it up nicely. There you are. Easy.
There you go.
I think that sums it up very nicely.
We're getting good at this, Matt.
Well, that was episode 3, everyone. Next week, as we said, we're going to be talking about budgeting and how we budget, because I'm sure we budget differently, so that's going to be actually quite interesting to see. We might even get some kind of screenshots of how we budget vaguely on it.
Oh yeah, I like that idea.
As ever, the PDF that we were sort of reading off will be in the description below. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.